solutions through integrated planning and robust finance. We are showing practical tools by the Naturescapes project. So I am Vanessa Morales. I am Senior Climate and Nature Nexus Policy Specialist for WWF International, and I will be moderating this session today with my colleague. But before introducing my panel, my great panelists, I want to read an analogy for today's conversation. So when we think, of course, we are talking about urban NbS. So the effort to scale nature-based solutions it's like trying to build a modern and complex city, right? Which means we have different societal challenges. When the workers, which would be the implementers and the communities, they could have great local traditional skills, but maybe lacking the blueprints, which would be the standards, the metrics, right? The monitoring, evaluation, and the learning tools. And the managers, which would be the policymakers, right, speak a different language. So the institutions, the donors, the finance, only provides short-term loans or other ways of giving money for prefabricated, let's say, concrete buildings, so gray infrastructure and others. That would be making it nearly impossible to fund the slow and resilient living infrastructure would be nature-based solutions. That is, which is what city needs. So to succeed, we need to bring architects, financiers, the local builders together, speaking the same language, right? Of cost effectiveness and long-term benefits, supporting with a clear, proven examples of successful living structures. So that's what we want to do today. We want to discuss how to scale nature-based solutions, connecting the science to the policy and to the investment and decision-making to scale these for cities and urban landscapes. So please, first let me introduce Manuel Pulgar Vidal, Global Lead on Climate and Energy for WWF International. Manuel will be presenting one of these practical tools and giving us a little bit of framework for the discussion before we start the panel. Over to you.
Thank you, Vane. And thank you for being here. It's a difficult time to be in a panel with this temperature and increasing and more warming environment, but let's try to have fun, to understand, to learn a bit, not only about this initiative, but about NbS and its relation with urban. So let me start by sharing with you some ideas to understand or to put it well in context what we are going to discuss today. We are talking about nature-based solutions. We are talking about high integrity. We are looking on how to reduce impacts and how to promote more benefits in urban areas. So we are trying to connect dots. So let me start by saying something about NbS. We know how much instrumental nature-based solutions could be, can be, to be more concrete, can be to address climate, biodiversity crisis, as well as some other societal challenges, as it was referred by Vane, that mentioned health, mentioned food, water, among some others. So it's clear that when we think about nature-based solutions, we are used to forgetting the concept solutions. The idea it is what kind of solutions we can bring to address those societal challenges. So that is the main value that we have to recognize. But there is a second value that means or to protect and to keep ecological integrity or to restore what it has been already loose in sense of to restore nature into some places. But finally, all of those, and so that is the second value, it is related to how can we keep integrity, ecological integrity. But there is a third value that it is by creating social impact, positive impact, and social benefits. That means also to include, that means to be participatory, to be open in this process. But in this case, in this initiative, there is a second key point. We are thinking about urban areas. This project, it is to address the problem in urban areas. And we have to always remind that cities and urban areas are one of those transitions suggested by science. When we think about the 4 transitions suggested by science, the energy, the industry, the building, infrastructure, and cities, and the forest, and land, and agriculture, and all the nature side, we have to recognize that urban areas are key place to be addressed because more people is moving into cities, into urban areas, and the urban areas are the source of the main sources of emissions for the planet, because it is the place in which we are emitting because of transport, because of bad management of solid waste, because of lack of energy efficiency, because of lack of good patterns for construction and buildings, among some others. So the idea it is how much instrumental nature-based solutions can be to be addressed in urban areas and to address the same societal challenges but in urban areas. And that moves me to something that it is also important that Banner referred, how much we do need to develop these kind of tools and interventions by convening different actors that have responsibility on planning and developing those urban areas. Because we know, I am Latin American, I am from Peru. We know how much cities have been developed without any planification process. We have how much the non-formal economy, it is just creating new growing areas in urban, new places in urban areas without any consideration of these things that we have to address with sense of urgency. So by bringing together people from government, national government, from local authorities, by bringing architects, by bringing engineers, by bringing lawyers. I am a lawyer. We don't need sometimes lawyers, but by bringing different disciplines, no, we will be more able to transmit what are those tools that could make us to being more effective. And I've already mentioned this word, planning. We have to plan. We have to develop the urban areas by planning. And sometimes we are used to thinking, okay, no way to do nature-based solutions in so huge cities as it could be Mexico City with more than 25 million people, or Sao Paulo with 20 million people, or Lima with 12 million people. No, it's possible. It's possible, for sure. Deserve more effort, more attention, but we can replan those cities. We can promote good interventions to recover those cities and to make it more sustainable. So that is why this initiative called NatureScape is dealing with that. It's how to assess the physical and social impacts on NbS sites related for sure to urban areas. And there is, I won't take too much more time, but the point it is how natural assets and NbS make to climate, biodiversity, and communities, how much benefits the consideration of the interventions through NbS and natural assets, how much positive benefits it can create to urban areas. That is the idea of NatureScapes. But this tool also, it is going one step beyond just that consideration. It is we have a lot of individual intervention, but we are not looking the interface in between, or we are not losing the gaps because are fragmented intervention. The idea of this tool, it is to see how can we close those gaps if exist, how can we create more synergies in between all the interventions to make that the whole urban area can be better managed in a more effective way. And what is the purpose? It is to analyze climate, biodiversity, social justice, and transformative potential as a way to conclude what are the potential benefits of each one of the interventions, and with that promote more connecting each other. So, and for whom? For local and regional policymakers, for practitioners, for NbS financial organizations, for key economic sectors, and researchers. And for that, we have developed indicators. Let me put some examples. For climate, land surface temperature, carbon storage, NbS climate relation, ambition, and performance, for biodiversity, coastal habitats, NbS biodiversity-related ambition, protected areas, in relation to social justice, population access to blue and green space, inclusiveness, and in relation to transformative potential, long-term perspective, potential for high-quality project result delivery. The idea it is to work with these indicators and to map this kind of potential benefits for each one of those. And with that, we are preparing this scorecard. Choquehuanca Square, for example, on climate, what is the score? On biodiversity, it's high, NbS biodiversity-related ambition and performance. And with that, we will be more able then to see what are the benefits if we start, I thought that it would be 2. Okay, there is just 1, no? And the idea it is to start to connect those interventions to see what are the trade-offs, what are the benefits, what are the collisions, what are the clashes in each one of the interventions. So that is the idea. The idea it is to implement by collaborating, but by having correct data. Because this is my last part. We do need to have ways to monitoring. We do need to have ways to implement by collaborate with the most accurate data that could move us into the best decision-making process. So that is the idea of Naturescape, and back to you, Vane, to open the panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Manuel. Thank you. So with this framing and with this example, we would like to invite our panelists to the front. Please, Elisa Morguera, UN Special Rapporteur on Climate Change and Human Rights. Thank you, Elisa. Wen-Xin Li, Senior Climate Change Specialist from the Global Environmental Facility, the GEF. Ana Lima, from Accountability Framework Initiative. And Thales Dantas, please, Director of IDEMA, the Executive Agency for Rio Grande do Norte Environmental Policy. Thank you. And Manuel, you want to join us also? Please. We want to make this a very interactive panel, so of course also feel free to respond to your colleagues' answers also if you have other things to complement. But let me start with Elisa. So from the UN perspective, what are the key priorities for ensuring that indigenous peoples and local communities can meaningfully participate in investment decisions affecting the landscape surrounding cities? And are there any emerging practices that you would like to highlight?
Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay, great. Yeah, thank you so much for this opportunity to contribute to this panel. I think I'll start by some maybe premises. I think it's really important to recognize that all climate action, whether in urban or any other context, need to be at the nexus of climate, nature, water, food, and health. We had a paradigmatic report last year from the Intergovernmental Panel on Ecosystem Services and Biodiversity, really calling on that action. And we also had 3 advisory opinions on state obligations on climate change, saying the same thing from a legal perspective. Climate action must be also biodiversity, water, food, and health action. Otherwise, we're not really taking meaningful climate action at all. And then there was the really important question on the slide about, does this make economic sense? But I think what we're understanding from a human rights perspective is that economic sense to whom? Because it may make a lot of economic sense for some, but not a very economic sense for others. And we know that the climate crisis is at its very root an economic inequality crisis, and that is interlinked with biodiversity loss and pollution. So I think it is important to reflect on how those processes and the tools that can be developed can support asking those difficult questions about inequalities. And this, to me, leads to a really important point, which is not accepting that there may be trade-offs, but when we identify trade-offs, realizing that this is an indication that our analysis, our tools, our participatory processes need to go deeper, because we are stopping at a point of tension among those when we are not really understood the nexus and we're not really being inclusive. And if you accept that there will be winners and losers, we are not really exploring the full potential for transformation. And what I've seen in my work is that once we accept that the trade-offs are an area for learning and deeper questioning, including self-questioning, that is where we discover a whole new horizon of transformation. And in a way where it can move from a logic of sacrifice, which unfortunately is very much not only the logic of the economic processes that have led us to climate change, that have led to climate solutions that are separate from water, nature, food, and health, but it's also the logic that leads to violations of human rights in the context of climate solutions. And it's important to see that whenever we have the possibility of expanding our understanding of knowledge holders, of experts, as part of this understanding of where are the tensions and the opportunities for nature, climate, and water action to be taken, we need to listen to the people who are already being most negatively affected and understand what they think about economic costs and economic sense. And then we will be really realizing, well, are we looking at this in terms of lost public income that we are losing because of measures that don't really support human health? Or are we looking at still supporting certain economic interests who are irreconcilably linked to the climate crisis? These are difficult questions, but they are essential questions in my mind to really make sure that in any effort to seek that nexus, we don't leave behind the people who not only are most affected, but who, exactly because of those negative impacts on their human rights, they have the deepest, most systemic understanding of why we're missing this nexus and the mistakes we need not to repeat to be on a path towards a more integrated action. And in fact, not only that, but we also need to prioritize their needs as part of the action towards meaningful connection between climate, nature, water, and I would add food and health connections. And these are things that are very difficult for governments to do, very difficult for universities to do, very difficult for financial institutions to do, because the knowledge of all these sectors is usually in silos. And we try to integrate, we try to share information, but the truth is, it is difficult. And I think the most incredible knowledge experience of my life is when talking to indigenous peoples, children, women, Afro-descendants who want to be heard in this space, who want to influence financial decisions, who want to be part of research. It's in listening to their lives that we all get really intuitions, deep epiphanies about that, how we connect all these areas of knowledge and how we can respond to the best of our capacities to that. So in a nutshell, my provocation, but it's also my deeper recommendation is that we should not stop at identifying trade-offs. When we do, we should realize that's a call for going deeper and speaking even more inclusively and self-reflectively with the human rights holders who are most affected, because they will give us the vision of a deeper root cause that we need to address if we want to meaningfully advance on climate action at the nexus. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Elisa. And yeah, you've raised very important points that also will be addressed by your colleagues, because, I mean, as you said, looking at the synergies means looking at the trade-offs also, and of course avoiding these inequalities, right? And maybe I want to, with your provocation, also move to Wen Jin, so from the GEF. From your experience with the GEF Sustainable Cities Program, for example, how is GEF advancing in this holistic approach to urban sustainability by integrating high-integrity nature-based solutions, which looks also at these elements that Elisa has mentioned, into planning frameworks across the cities and metropolitan areas?
Thank you. Thank you very much. And first, maybe I'll just start with some background on the GEF, which is the Global Environment Facility. We are the financial mechanism for 3 real conventions. And so one is, of course, UNFCCC, also UNCCD, and CBD. So addressing environmental issues more holistically in an integrated manner, as Elisa suggested, is very core to how we operate. And the sustainable cities is also one of the examples on how we try to holistically examine this space. And I want to also mention that our support to countries, we provide grants mostly to countries at the cities level in this program. We want to address the key drivers of environmental degradation related to nature losses, but also we want to promote nature-based solutions as a key opportunity. I think we also talked about how urbanization has been a key driver for the loss of biodiversity, and also on the other hand, the lack of nature in the urban center and in the surrounding area also led to rising temperatures and higher impact from flooding. So we think that unplanned urban expansion is really the leading cause for fragmentation of ecosystem and the loss of species in the area. I think that's Manuel also spoke to that. How do we do integrated programs in the cities? We want to really integrate nature in core urban functions through urban planning, governance, investment, and the policies, the different actors that everyone have been spoken to. So we think that by such integrated programs, that we will enhance greater adoption of nature-based solutions. And they can deliver high environmental benefits, but also higher social-economic benefits as well. I want to mention that we have already the sustainable city integral programs over the last 3 cycles of JEF financing. And we have invested in over 100 countries, 100 cities in 33 countries. And in all those programs, we have prioritized the nature in these solutions that are being invested by these nearly 100 cities. And on the nature-based solutions, we think that we are supporting the cities to take stronger steps towards urban biodiversity corridors, and we want to help them to define urban protected areas by law. We want to help them to restore depleted wetlands, this water issue, and also scale up urban forestry. And we are working at really different scales, including megacities like Chengdu or Chennai, metropolitan regions, Asuncia, Colombo, and San Jose, rapidly expanding cities like Kigali and Freetown, and also smaller but globally significant cities like Belém. So here in these cities, our projects help cities to integrate nature in the urban master plans and investment plans. We also pilot solutions to demonstrate their impact. And we strengthen governance mechanism for cross-sectoral and multilateral collaboration, develop investable projects, and design innovative financing solutions, such as payment for ecosystem. So here I want to specifically speak to our partnerships for knowledge. The global platform within the Sustainable Cities program is led by World Bank with support from UNEP, C4D, ICLAI, and WRI. And the platform also includes regional development banks such as EBRD, IADB, Africa Development Bank. And those initiatives are being also leveraged to scale up the impacts of the platforms. One example is IADB investment in Peru. IADB will develop innovative financing solutions to support scaling up of nature-based solutions in 3 cities in Peru. And also ADB also is blending our JEF grants with 300 million debt financing in Chennai to restore a major lake upstream of Chennai. So that will help improve the resilience and the water management in Chennai. And so finally, I want to mention that we are also working closely with the Naturescape initiative that's led by Zhehan and Utrecht University. So we really want to generate lessons and experiences from the over 100 cities programs. And then we want to also develop knowledge products and we are working closely with IPCC to inform the upcoming special report on cities. So we hope that will help to contribute to the pool of knowledge available to improve the sustainability of cities. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Wenxin, and for all the things that you're doing and this landscape approach to scale nature-based solutions from the finance point of view. We will move to Anna from the private sector perspective. So Anna, based on your experience across the Nature Tech Collaborative Global Network, what are those promising innovations that you see are helping make science-based data and analytical tools more intelligible and accessible, right, for public and private decision makers, which we have in the room?
Thank you, Bernie, and it's a great pleasure to be here today with this very distinct panel. I've just a brief introduction to my journey. So I've been working with landscape transition for the last 20 years. And I happen to have joined the Nature Tech Collective a few years ago exactly because, you know, landscape transition depends heavily on data for decision making, for collaboration, and to avoid, you know, the siloed and exclusionary logic that's still pervasive. In most cases, you worked connecting the dots to critical landscapes, and that means connecting the farmer, the folk to the farmer, to the intermediary, and all the way to the downstream companies that distribute products. Because without wonderful tools like this, companies don't see their role and do not see their responsibility, and in many cases do not know, and investors as well, do not know what to do with landscapes that are vulnerable to the climate crisis and to poverty and to social issues. And that took me to a place that I'm currently working, which is the Accountability Framework Initiative. And this is a coalition of 20 plus environmental and social NGOs that by consensus and real consensus where everybody aligned, define principles, criteria, and guidance on how corporates, investors, and landscapes can avoid environmental and social abuses. So I think, like, going into the tools more specifically, I think there's something very simple but very powerful about Naturescapes, which is cities can only make a decision when they understand the landscape reality around them. So that means scientifically, that means socially, that means economically. And I think the biggest innovations are those that translate landscape dynamics into clear and practical guidance for planners, for corporates, and for investors. So I think first, we are seeing major advances in high-resolution landscape intelligence. So we are, I think, for the first time over the last maybe 5 years, maybe a little bit more, connecting satellite imagery, hydrological modeling, land use change alerts, and biodiversity data together. And this is exactly the combination that we need for investors and planners to understand, okay, where do I get the best, and where is the place where NbS is going to result in the best resilience solution per dollar invested. I think nature tech is now giving us the ability to answer those questions with precision. Not to us that are like fighting for the cause, but to those that have to make quick decisions for their shareholders or for their stakeholders. I think secondly, we can talk about the tools that connect, again, science to economics. So tools that allow to create cost-efficient, high-integrity pathways. So that allow cities to quantify avoided costs, infrastructure savings, and resilience gains. And then finally, we're seeing tools like Naturescapes or like land scales that also underline Naturescapes that embed where equity, governance, traceability, and MRV, which are all central to the Naturescape scorecards. So in that sense, for the AFI is very connected with Naturescape mission, which is like decisions have to be grounded in transparent, verifiable evidence and not assumptions.
Thank you so much, Anna, for sharing with us. Technology is key now to bring in that specific data for decision making. Thank you. I'm going to jump to Thales. From the perspective of the state government, what are the most promising entry points to integrate high-integrity nature-based solutions into this territorial planning, as what we have heard before?
Eu não estou preparado para falar em inglês, mas eu posso falar em português?
Sim.
Posso? Okay. My English, it's a little horrible. Anyway. Mas o Rio Grande do Norte is a state from here, from Brazil. It's a state, poor state, and nós já fazemos a implementação das soluções, né, baseadas na natureza, e eu fiquei bastante impressionado, Manuel, com a sua apresentação assim, principalmente com o score. Achei fantástico, porque é uma das coisas que nós, enquanto brasileiros, né, enquanto governos estaduais, governos locais, nós já implementamos bastante as soluções baseadas na natureza sem chamar de soluções baseadas na natureza. É importante frisar que quando a gente fala de um estado como o Brasil, que tem uma grande desigualdade social, e que aqui em Belém vocês conseguem observar isso ao olho nu, né? Vocês veem na rua, vocês percebem o quanto a desigualdade convive lado a lado com a política ambiental, né? Então, nossa experiência enquanto Estado do Rio Grande do Norte, enquanto governo do Estado, é muito uma perspectiva de pensar uma solução na hora que a gente cria uma unidade de conservação, na hora que a gente transforma uma área como da Caatinga, da Mata Atlântica, numa perspectiva de integração econômica. Então, o Rio Grande do Norte, Natal, uma cidade que é a capital, uma cidade turística, uma cidade voltada para o turismo, um turismo principalmente de preservação. Então, na hora que a gente, enquanto governo, né, isso a gente se coloca também na perspectiva para os demais estados da região Nordeste e para o governo federal, nesse cenário, é pensar uma outra alternativa em que você consiga aliar o desenvolvimento sustentável com a preservação ambiental, integrando as comunidades. A exemplo, por exemplo, das comunidades pescadoras, né, quilombolas, indígenas, ribeirinhas, né, ciganas, que existem dentro de um território. Então, acho que nós temos essa contribuição muito grande na perspectiva de, no momento que se cria uma unidade de conservação, nós tínhamos 10, estamos criando mais 9 unidades de conservação dentro do estado do Rio Grande do Norte. O Rio Grande do Norte é um estado pequeno, porém muito diverso, né? A biodiversidade é muito forte. Porque a gente tem Caatinga, tem Mata Atlântica, mas também existe dezenas, centenas de grupos étnicos locais, né? E é bem simbólico a gente, no Dia da Consciência Negra, que é hoje, aqui no Brasil, é importante a gente também frisar a inclusão social nessa perspectiva da preservação. Então, as soluções baseadas na natureza, quando eu comecei a ler e estudar mais sobre esse tema, foi uma das coisas que, para nós, enquanto estados, né, Estado do Rio Grande do Norte, é uma coisa que nós já fazemos. Através, por exemplo, do financiamento público, através de um fundo de meio ambiente que financia as ações, né, de reparação do manguezal, dos mangues, de reparação das florestas, né, na Mata Atlântica, principalmente. Na hora em que a gente garante, nós somos o primeiro e único estado até agora a garantir o processo de consulta livre, prévia e informada para todos os empreendimentos que são licenciados pelo Estado. Isso é importante num debate que nós estamos vendo aqui hoje no Brasil, da exploração de petróleo aqui na Foz, né, próximo, né, aqui no Rio Amazonas, né, enfim, a exploração aqui no Amapá do petróleo, aqui, que depois o governo brasileiro se colocou para fazer a consulta. Como é que faz a consulta se já está certo, né? Aí, então, lá no Rio Grande do Norte, não, a gente está fazendo todo o processo de licenciamento. Quando ele inicia, ele já passa pelo setor de povos e comunidades tradicionais. Não é fácil, os empresários têm uma percepção completamente diferente. Ah, isso é besteira, para que isso agora? Está inventando moda, né? E a governadora ela nos coloca muito no cenário de priorização da pauta ambiental. E este acaba sendo uma grande diferença nossa nesse cenário. Por exemplo, semana passada nós viemos aqui, a governadora veio, né, assinou uma série de protocolos de importância, para além da assinatura de documentos burocráticos, a garantia de investimento e visibilidade no tema do clima. Então, por exemplo, estar num espaço como esse aqui, discutindo sobre soluções baseadas na natureza, para nós que somos nordestinos, potiguares, é imprescindível, porque é muito importante, porque nós já somos tão invisíveis nesse cenário aqui internamente, nessa pauta. Quando é pauta ambiental, é mais invisível ainda. E lá a gente consegue, tentando, dentre as contradições do capitalismo, né, a gente vivencia essas contradições, e na política ambiental não é diferente. A gente não consegue pensar uma outra alternativa de sistema ainda, né? A gente tem que pensar, mas é muito difícil no sistema de produção capitalista. Mas lá no Rio Grande do Norte a gente vem tentando aliar turismo, o licenciamento ambiental dos empreendimentos, né? Lá nós temos um estado muito rico de recursos naturais, então tem muitos empreendimentos internacionais, né? Petróleo, energias renováveis, é o estado que mais produz energia eólica, né? Energia verde no país. 32% do mercado hoje nacional é produzido no Rio Grande do Norte, então tem uma potencialidade muito grande. Mas, apesar disso, a desigualdade persiste. E aí as soluções baseadas na natureza é a única forma que nós temos realmente de integrar as políticas ambiental e social. Então, o socioambiental é imprescindível nesse processo. E, para finalizar, né, recentemente nós sancionamos a lei estadual de política de educação ambiental. Nessa perspectiva da política ambiental, de educação ambiental, a gente vai começar a colocar, já fazemos esse cenário, nas condicionantes do licenciamento, todas as empresas que se instalem no Rio Grande do Norte, obrigatoriamente terem um projeto socioambiental para a comunidade que está próxima, seja uma eólica, seja petróleo, salinas, carcinicultura, agropecuária, enfim. E isso é importante para integrar a comunidade com o órgão ambiental também, porque foi muito bem colocado. O que nos falta muitas vezes é conseguir mapear esse índice. Eu achei fantástico o índice aqui, para a gente até copiar também, absorver a ideia, para a gente poder também ter isso lá no Rio Grande do Norte, de como medir as soluções baseadas na natureza. E isso a gente poder levar também para os demais estados do Brasil, essa perspectiva. E é isso. Obrigado, gente.
Thank you. Vane forgot to mention that my role would be to, after the first round, sorry for that, but no, I would reanimate for a second round. So let me build based on what Thales has just mentioned. Inequities in cities, so important, because it is true. I forgot to mention inequities. It's so present in cities, different relations, different difficulties, not to well-integrated communities many times, and the need of having ways to measure progress and to track and to have indicators. So based on that, Elisa, you are more in the human rights side and connecting with the climate for sure. And we presented this tool talking about indicators. You have already referred to connecting food, health, water, the human right holder. That was your word. And I would like to add something that in a panel some days ago, it was amazing with NbS. How much NbS is creating decent work. How much NbS is promoting new jobs, but based in this concept of decent work. And that is so important. So if you were to define if there is a missing indicator that can secure not that this connection in between nature-based solutions in urban cities with human rights, what you do suggest?
Yeah, thanks for that. And I think in many ways there's a really nice connection with the last presenter. I think, having that reflection on economic inequality as an indicator, if it's not there, that would be a really important element to then see other kind of knock-on effects on human rights. So that would be, what indicator to use is one question. I guess then how we monitor that application, who we talk to understand what is economic inequality and in what ways it manifests itself in people's life would be another. So yeah, there will be a combination, I guess, of the two.
Excellent, Elisa. And in your case, Weng-Sing, you talk about investment, no? That need, how much a planning process could promote more investment in this kind of intervention, and how much the global environmental facility, it is promoting nature interventions in urban areas. What other financial barrier we have to overcome to be more effective?
Yeah, it's a good question. But I also want to just briefly touch upon
the idea is to talk.
Inequality issue. I think that's why addressing resilience of cities are specifically important, because within a city, the population that's most vulnerable to higher temperatures or flooding would be the lower income population, right? So that's why providing solutions that will reduce these risks will give more benefits to those population that is underrepresented. I think in terms of what's the barriers for investment in the cities, I think one is that the city planners may not necessarily know what are the menu of nature-based solutions that they can incorporate. I think what they are used to are more green infrastructures, right? So that's the traditional investments they are used to. So this type of tools, the tools that we are developing here, would help cities to see across different cityscapes to see what are the solutions that are being utilized, what are the impacts that they can learn lessons from, so that they feel more comfortable to see what's working elsewhere I can already incorporate into my cities. I think this is a big barrier. But the other is about the financial and the fiscal space of cities. How do they account for the benefits from these investments, right? Because increasing the resilience, it's avoiding loss of revenue, right? So this is how do they consider that in their planning. It's not just about, you'll have, water treatment plan, you provide service that you can quantify how many people are benefiting from the services. But nature-based solutions, you don't necessarily have direct beneficiaries easily identified. So then how do you quantify these benefits in the planning? And I think that's also, more tools, indicators would help city planners to make the case that what are the benefits for me to make this investment, right? So I think these may be a couple key barriers.
Good point, Wang Xin. Thank you. So build capacities, look the fiscal space, work in planning and show the benefits. So maybe based on that, Anna, how much technology can contribute to that? So how can we put technology more in hands of people to deal with those kinds of problems, no? So to have them understand it better, to promote more education, you talk about education, to go into the physical space. How can we improve the role of technology for NbS?
So I heard the other day an expression that I like a lot, which that NbS we shouldn't call it nature-based solutions. We should call it nature-engineered solutions, because it's basically the most fundamental, readily available, and cheap infrastructure for adaptation, particularly in cities. I think so. Technology plays a key role in providing data, but obviously that depends on preceding steps, which is understanding of the interdependencies that you mentioned. So what is needed in the landscape from the social perspective, from the infrastructure perspective, from the nature perspective? What is being asked from the investors? So I think that there's a key missing links here, which is because we know governments do not have enough resources. I mean, we need the private sector to step in, and for the private sector to step in, we need private sector to understand how they can make claims on that investment, and how private sector can understand what is an investable landscape, because we're not talking about specific projects anymore. I mean, we look, as we see here, we'll have to look at nature-based solutions in the context of a risky region. So if you have, for example, if you think about an asset manager, when they look at any region in the world, they think, oh, okay, so I have a city that is about to flood. So let me think about which corporates in my portfolios rely on the cities, or employees live on the cities, and they don't know what to do. So I think technology can provide reliable data, high integrity data, and and granularity for those decisions to be made, and for connecting these dots between how what is an avoided cost can be an opportunity in the long run. One interesting example that we use for investors particularly is, like, for example, in Japan, you have a lot of risks of floods, of earthquakes, and like investors, there's some asset managers that already are waiting for that. So they invest in corporates that explore this development of mangroves and carbon solutions connected to the surroundings. They invest in other. They complement that, investing in technology companies that provide building construction materials that are resilient to earthquakes. So I think technology provides the fundamental base for multi-stakeholder engagement, for alignment upstream, downstream, and with the government. And they provide a meaningful resource, as he was saying, to communicate with governments. But for that, obviously, we need a clearer guidance.
Thank you, Anna. So, Thales, based on what you have heard, and considering that we are in a COP, one day ahead of its end, we hope no more than a day, what do you expect to be agreed on this COP that could help you, Rio Grande do Norte, that could help you to make your actions more effective, bring this connection in between nature and urban areas more close? What is that single thing that you do want to? And probably after Thales, I will ask the same for you both. one thing, and Anna, what do you expect for this COP? A single idea, but first with you, Thales.
Bom, da COP30 a gente pode esperar, vou parafrasear o presidente Lula, né, e a ministra Marina Silva, né, de que essa COP ela tem que ser a COP da implementação, né? A COP que a gente consiga sair daqui com uma agenda concreta. E eu fiquei semana passada, domingo, saiu uma pesquisa nacional, né, as eleições no Brasil são próximo ano, né, para governadores, presidente, né, deputados, parlamentares, e despertou na população uma visão de que a política ambiental vai estar no tema central das eleições. E isso me deixou muito contente porque, para mim que trabalho no órgão ambiental, nós sabemos quando estamos em uma administração, estamos no dia a dia da sociedade, que meio ambiente sempre é colocado no último patamar e é sempre visto como problema, né? Contra o desenvolvimento. Lá vem o pessoal que vai contra o Greenpeace, não precisa nem dizer nada, que é visto como grande problema, né, das corporações e dos governos para investimentos que vão transformar a realidade e melhorar a vida das pessoas. Porém, que esses investimentos, normalmente, eles não chegam para quem mais precisa, né? E adorei o que a Ana colocou, realmente essas soluções baseadas na natureza, né, voltadas com a tecnologia, mas principalmente com a engenharia, né? Lá no Rio Grande do Norte, lá em Natal, a gente teve uma situação ano passado e a gente sofre muito com o aumento do nível dos oceanos, né? É um estado que tem uma grande costa, então a erosão costeira acaba sendo um grande desafio para nós, enquanto governo estadual, para lidar com. E foi feita uma obra de engorda, né, da praia de Ponta Negra, no ano passado, em que a Prefeitura do Natal conseguiu fazer a obra sem uma devida licença e sem um devido processo de fiscalização ambiental. Foi gasto 100 milhões de reais nessa engorda, pegaram a areia, né, transformaram a orla da praia e destruíram, né, vamos dizer assim, nesse cenário, destruíram a fonte de renda de pescadores. Não foi feita a consulta, uma obra eleitoreira, né, não foi feita a consulta. O ex-prefeito da cidade invadiu o órgão ambiental, quebrou os portões, né, para conseguir fazer um teor de perspectiva de jogar a população contra o órgão ambiental, porque isso atrapalhar o desenvolvimento. Então, a política de extrema-direita, inclusive, coloca nesse cenário como um grande desafio para nós, que somos governos, né, e que trabalhamos com o meio ambiente, com o clima. É o que eu fico, né, muito desesperançoso, porém com esperança, né? Desesperançoso porque a guinada que todo o planeta vem dando é para uma extrema-direita, para uma perspectiva, inclusive, né, cada vez mais de governos com visões igual dos Estados Unidos, por exemplo, né? Ou as grandes potências que estão aí poluindo e destruindo, né, o planeta. E que nós, enquanto governo brasileiro, fazemos aqui, vamos dizer assim, tentando fazer o dever de casa, nas contradições também, por causa da exploração do petróleo, em toda a situação que a gente sabe disso. Mas é com esperança também, porque para nós, nesse cenário, nós não temos outra alternativa, a não ser esperançar, né? Vamos colocar assim, ter esperança. Porque eu sei que é um legado muito forte para mim e para o governo para o qual eu trabalho, com a governadora Fátima Bezerra. Ela é fruto de um processo climático, ela fugiu da seca no interior da Paraíba e fez uma migração para o Rio Grande do Norte para tentar a vida. E isso para nós, né, nós lidamos com o clima, né, nós que somos nordestinos, porque minha mãe, inclusive, minha família, Vanessa também, teve que sair do interior, né, para tentar a vida em um outro local por N fatores, né? E a gente lida com a seca, a gente lida com esse clima, né? Então, pensar nós não temos alternativa a não ser pensar soluções baseadas na natureza, engenharia, né, baseada na natureza, inclusive, e para as cidades também, obviamente, né, não tem outra alternativa a não ser essas soluções que são colocadas aqui. Então, acho que é isso.
Thank you, Thales. 1 minute for each one of you. One single expectation for this COP in relation to this topic first.
Right. Well, it's a bit. I had the pleasure and the privilege to spend most of this COP in the Action Agenda space, and I'm leaving very inspired and energized by the idea of coordination and collaboration, which I think is essential for action. So I think if we could achieve coordinated investment pipelines, that would be incredible. I think cities won't scale NbS through scattered pilots. So I think we could work further together in spatial prioritization and like where should we focus now, because we cannot focus everywhere. I think we are progressing, but there's still a lot to do in terms of integrity frameworks. I'm hoping that corporates and investors understand that nature is pre-competitive and we can achieve better structures in terms of collaborative governance. And like the Naturescapes and so many other solutions that we're seeing, we can advance quickly with tech-enabled MRVs supported by all the governments.
Thank you, Anna. Wang Xing?
I'll be brief. I think it's the money. So it's where the money is coming from. Not necessarily just from, our donor countries for the GEF, but really there are different sources of financing that, whether it's domestic, whether private sector, I think there needs to be a signal from the COP that there is ambition, and there is also ambition for putting money into these solutions. So I think that's what we need, the signal here.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So thank you. We are now closing this event. Thank you, Vane. I don't know if you do want to say something to close, but thank you to the panelists. And I would like to ask for a round of applause for this fantastic panel.
Just to thank you also the panelists. And I think we achieved what we wanted today, to bring all these different perspectives and talk, as we were saying in the beginning, this analogy, bring all the different perspectives and build something together. So thank you, everyone.